Hello and welcome to Motors for the Masses, and today we're going to talk about something that has been around for a while, but no one really talks about it. So let's roll the intro and get cracking. So what are we talking about? Well, as you know, electric vehicles, don't switch off yet because I'm not necessarily talking about electric. Electric vehicles have been around for quite some time and are very much a part of our future, whether we like it or not. However, there's been an alternative around for a while that no one really talks about. And is that alternative viable? I don't know. You let me know in the comment section below afterwards. But we are talking about hydrogen. Now, hydrogen has been around for quite a while, as I said. In 2011, Toyota first developed their hydrogen fuel cell car. Didn't really take off, and I'll talk about why in a minute. However, it's a possibility if the right procedures and the right things are in place to support it. Now, Toyota, as I say, they made the first hydrogen car for sale, developed for production at around 2014. So it's been around for years. However, it's only really now that they're starting to properly market it. Now, it's not just Toyota that have been involved in it. Hyundai also have a car out for 2024 that they're trying to market in the hydrogen fuel cell era also. So a couple of manufacturers are getting on board, but it's not mainstream in Europe or in the whole of the world. The cars I'm talking about in particular are the Toyota Mirai. Is it Mirai? Yes, Mirai, M-I-R-A-I, and the Hyundai Nexo. So a Japanese car and a Korean car. So in Asia, as usual, they're ahead of the times and they're trying to push this. It's been quite a success in Japan, and again, I'll talk about the reason why in a minute. But first, what is a hydrogen-powered car and can it replace electric? Well, as demonstrated here, hydrogen is stored in tanks like you would a petrol tank, diesel tank or LPG tank, and supplies hydrogen to the fuel cell stack. There is then an inflow of air which is supplied to the fuel cell stack also. That typically comes from the front of the car, like a ram air if you will. There is a chemical reaction of air and hydrogen in the fuel cell stack and it generates electricity and water. The electricity is what runs the vehicle, and then the water is shot out through the vehicle's exhaust, which basically means there are no emissions. Now, the advantage of this is that you can fill up in 5 minutes with hydrogen like you can a petrol car, diesel car or LPG car. So you don't have to wait around for Teslas to get off the chargers, or 20 minutes whilst you have a coffee and a little walk whilst your car recharges. Now, there are downsides to this, obviously, and that is mostly that the infrastructure is not there to manage the hydrogen supply at the moment, and that sort of comes in various different forms. The tech they use comes from solar and wind power, and it's just not there. The cost is too high to make that happen. And when I say the cost is too high, it also comes into the storage and transportation. And again, I'll come on to that in a second. So let's look a bit more closely at those costs. Well, first of all, let's look at the fueling. A Mirai, or the new Toyota Mirai, will cost you about £60 in hydrogen to fill up and about £70 for the Hyundai Nexo, which is about on par for a petrol or diesel vehicle. But the main advantage is you don't get the emissions shooting out the back. So you've got the benefit of filling up in 5 minutes and the benefit of no emissions. So you've got the best of electric and the best of a combustion engine vehicle. But there's more. The range for a Nexo is about 400 miles. Again, very much like a petrol or diesel car. However, the Nexo does cost £69,500 and it's basically just another SUV crossover type thingy. Now, if you were to compare that with a petrol car or electric vehicle, it is like this. So as I say, the Price of the Hyundai Nexo is £69,500. The equivalent petrol car would be something like the Hyundai Tucson, which starts at £30,500 and goes up to £45,000. So that's quite a bit cheaper. The equivalent electric vehicle would be something like the electric Hyundai Kona, which starts at £35,000 and goes up to about £43,000. Now, when it comes to the Mirai, that's a different vehicle altogether. You're looking like a 5-door family saloon. Looks a bit like a Mondeo with the typical Toyota front end. However, range-wise, you're looking about the same, and apparently MPG's around about 70 miles to the gallon. So that's pretty good. But of course, there's the downside. The Mirai starts at £50,000 and goes up to £65,000. So it is cheaper than the Hyundai, and it's not another SUV crossover. It's a saloony hatch thingy, like the Ford Mondeo, as I said, but with that Toyota-esque front end. However, the equivalent, maybe something like a Toyota Corolla hybrid, starts at £32,000, quite a bit cheaper. Toyota's electric car is the crossover SUV thingy, the BZ4X, and they start at £43,000 with around 315 miles of range. Toyota only do the Aygo in a petrol car now, and that's just a small little hatch starter car, if you like. And the only diesels they do is their new Land Cruiser and vans. Everything else is hybrid or electric. So can hydrogen vehicles be successful in somewhere like the UK, especially when the pushing of the EV agenda is so high in their priorities? Well, it could be if it was supported like in places like Japan and Germany also. And that is because the government are pushing hydrogen fuel cell vehicles and really supporting them in terms of storage, putting the infrastructure in place and transportation. And that is where the tricky bit lies. Because hydrogen is low in its volumetric energy density, that means it's about 3 times lighter than petrol, diesel and LPG. And the problem with that is that it's very easy to escape, which means it's difficult to store and very difficult to transport, which is why you need a whole different setup and infrastructure in place to do that, store and transport this hydrogen. And that is where I think the governments are not going to come through. They're too heavily invested in electric, and I don't think they're going to put that kind of money into a new infrastructure supporting hydrogen. However, that might not be a choice. That might be something they're forced to do if the surge on electric fails as it continues to do so. Manufacturers are pulling out of electric vehicles because the infrastructure isn't in place. Now, in terms of hydrogen, you can supply it through a petrol station. You do have to store it and transport it differently, as I said. But what's putting people off a lot of electric vehicles is that if you have one, you have to charge it. And that means you've got all these charge places, either in petrol stations around the country or outside your home. You don't need that for LPG because you just go to a petrol pump like you do. In fact, it's not a petrol pump, it's a hydrogen pump at a petrol station or gas station in America. Don't even get me started. And fill it up, and it takes 5 minutes. And that's the massive advantage of it. And it's still very, very green. Now, it is new technology, so the vehicles are going to be expensive, just like electric vehicles were when they first came out. And the price has come down for some manufacturers for those. And everyone's pushing the electric agenda, although some of them are backtracking, Ford for one. So is hydrogen a real contender? Can they actually get on board and make this happen? Hyundai have produced their Nexo, Toyota have produced their Mirai, and they're now going in proper production where they are properly for sale in the UK. So, is this something that we can look forward to, and is it a good alternative for electric vehicles? Let me know in the comment section below what you think on this. I mean, the downside is that they're still silent because obviously they're still run by electric motors. It's just not provided by these massive heavy batteries underneath the car because it's got a hydrogen fuel cell. One thing with that is that apparently you do get a weird hissing noise as the air is pushed in and the propulsion is ignited and done, you know, stuff, electric bits and hydrogen and fuel and psst, you get this hissing noise. But I suppose that's better than the remote controlled car noise that you get with electric vehicles. I don't know. Let me know what you think and whether this is a viable option you think for the future, or whether the government's just going to go, nah, we spent far too much money on electric vehicles. We'll just let it die. It's the Betamax of the video world. You know, somebody's done it. It's happened. They're trying to produce it, but we're just not going to support it. We'll stick with the VHS, being electric vehicles. So let me know what you think. And that's all I've got for this episode. So thank you very much for joining me. I'll be back next time with something else, of course. So until next time, please ride and drive carefully, but have fun. Bye-bye.